time between
All right, so
123 and
Photoshop
124,
does
you've got
allow us
slowed
to
down.
edit
There's an
video.
earlier accident
It's
cleared. This is
probably
on.
not the it's not the most advanced way to edit video. If we do another project a little more sophisticated, we'll be using Adobe Premiere. But you know, since we have experience using Photoshop, and this does have the capability of doing that, that's something that you know we're going to take advantage of and at least get some experience doing that. All right, so I have my clips in here, and I want to just show you. Ooh, that looks a little weird there. This is kind of what we're going to end up to. We're going to talk about importing footage. We're going to talk about trimming it, doing some color correction, and adjusting the volume to it. All right. So I'm going to start with, or actually, let me tell you, this would be really simple if we didn't have to worry about the audio. I guess I'm making this a little more difficult than it has to be, but I think the result will be good. The reason for that is the audio from this footage is probably not going to be that that attractive, really. All right, we have a lot of background noise. So with this video, we're going to put in like some stock footage, like a song or something like that, to be the audio in the background, rather than hearing people kind of talking about things. So what's going to happen here? Actually, I'm going to start off with some new documents. All right. You're going to be editing by yourself. All right. So you really just recorded that footage. I mean, you could, I guess, still kind of talk to each other about what you want to do, but you're each going to be editing your own video. Tyler? Yep, right here. All right, so again, right now we're just taking notes down, and then we'll go back and we'll go through the demonstration afterwards, all right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document, and we're going to go to the film and video preset, and let's just name this Thought Bubbles. Please just take notes now and observe. Don't go through the process, all right? See how good your notes are later when you go through this. All right, so step one is document setup. All right, so we're using film and video. There are some different settings in here. I think this is going to match the quality, or we're going to start off with high quality, so it's 1920 by 1080. You can see here that preset is HD TV, so high definition television, and 1080 is your pixel count there. Mike? All right, well, if so, all right, I'm going to do that, and then I think I'll show, I don't have that. It's going to be in there, Mike. You have to just go, instead of US paper or whatever it is, you should have a film and video preset in there. All right, but again, we're just taking notes down right now, right? We're not, I don't want you guys actually doing this. I want you to observe and like to be taking this in. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to import, or I'm sorry, place that footage just like we would have before. All right, so place embedded. I'm going to find my first clip, which is Damien walking in. All right. All right, so it comes in, and then we press the check box to accept the sizing of that. All right, so we're placing that file in there. And then we're going to press on the bottom here. If you don't see this timeline window, you would go up to Window and select Timeline. All right, so I'm going to write in here, make sure timeline is visible. All right. All right, so we make sure this, so this is what I'm talking about down here, this timeline. and then we're going to press that create timeline. So now you can see that we have this clip placed in here. Now normally we would go right ahead and we would start doing some editing. However, we want to get rid of the sound to this. But actually I'm going to come back to that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and place my other file. So I'm going to place it again. I'm going to use, who had the video of me? So you have that in the shared folder of me writing? Alright, so let's see if I can find that in here. There I am, I'm writing. So I'm going to use my footage there too. Oh wait. Alright, so I guess we have some differences in resolution for cameras. So I'm just going to stretch this out to fit. Alright, and then, so what do you notice right now about my layers? Danny? They're above. So am I going to be able to see this video down here? No. So what do you think I'm going to want to do with that? I'm going to want to move it, right? So right down here is what's called your zoom slider, because right now I can't see my whole timeline. So I'm going to drag this to the left so I can zoom out. Now I can see more space over here. All right, and then I'm going to drag this down. Oh, yeah. So now, and this is what's called your playhead. All right. So now I can, as they call, scrub this through. All right, and I would see now that we have the first scene kind of transitioning into the second one. All right, so here's some more vocab that we would want to talk about here. All right, so zoom slider. What did we just say that does? It
extends the timelines so you can see everything.
Good. So I'm going to say it lets us see more or less of the timeline. All right. The playhead. All right. So that is this like blue. I think it looks like a guitar pick. It's kind of like a pentagonal shape. All right. It does have 5 sides, I believe there. So. And it allows us to as they call scrub through the timeline or scan, all right? So that terminology of scrubbing, right? If you were to use a sponge and scrubbing something off, you're kind of rubbing it back and forth. So that's kind of where that term comes from. So I'm just going to say scrub/scan through the timeline. All right, and this is why I don't want you guys really doing this so much, because as we're doing this, because we have some vocab here to talk about, and I don't want you to get lost, all right? So we placed the file, and then we clicked Create Timeline. And then we repeated the process. So I'm going to say repeat number 2 with additional files, video files. And I'm going to put in parentheses here, right? So zoom out to see timeline and move clips after each other, right? Because we don't want them on top of each other. All right, so that would be our second clip, and then I would just repeat this basically with the third one. So I'm going to say File, Place, Embedded. I'm going to find our wall of pictures here. I'm going to scale this to fit. I'm I'll add that here too with number 2. So we're going to place the file and scale if necessary, right? Because we don't want one video to be really small and another to be larger. So right now, right, this is in the wrong position, so I'm just going to drag this down on the timeline. All right, so now if we were looking at these clips, it would go like that and then like this, all right? So right now, this would be great if Photoshop would allow us to immediately edit our audio. All right, so I struggled with this. In Premiere, it's a lot easier to do this, but right now, if we play this, all right, we're getting all that background noise, which, right, so we wouldn't really want that included with the video. Now, in Photoshop, you do have a master volume, but then if we add audio, it's not going to play that. So we want to be able to have a little bit of control with this. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, and I know that we're going to probably struggle with this a little bit, but if you kind of see the process of what happens here, then hopefully we can make it work later, all right? So what happens in Photoshop, all right, if we look at our layers, all these videos have this little symbol on the bottom, which indicates that it's a smart object. All right, because really what we want to be able to do in the end is we want to click on this arrow and we want to be able to see that we can change the audio or just lower the audio for these individual clips. All right, in order to do that, I'm going to find my clip over here, and if I just double click this, it creates a new file from this. All right, so now if we look over here, now we have audio options. However, it's created this new file. All right, so what I'm going to do is with each one, I'm going to go back to the file. All right, I'm going to then double click on the individual clip. It opens it in a new file, and then I'll do the same thing for the third one. All right, so we have these 3 individual files, which are now, we have audio we can edit, but now we have to get it back into our main one. All right, so I'm going to say here now, after we do that we get our files on the timeline, so now we're just going to say we're going to double click the Smart Object thumbnail in our layer panel. Which converts it to a video group, as it's called. I was trying to do some research to kind of describe exactly why that's happening. I couldn't really, but so we're just gonna take it as it is. All right. So we're gonna double click the Smart Object thumbnail in the layer panel, which will open it in a new file. All right. And as you can see up here also, it's creating this new extension. PSB is a Photoshop file that's a large file. All right, so let me zoom in on here in case your eyes aren't so good. All right, and we're going to say, so we're going to repeat number 5 for each clip. All right. So do you guys kind of understand conceptually what's happening right now? All right, so we're converting these clips so that we can edit the audio, all right, or lower that audio. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring these back into this original file. Actually, I'm going to just close this one to avoid confusion. All right, so I'm going to save this in my demo lessons. In here, and then I'm going to make a new file. Actually, I guess, from these, there's an interesting thing you can do. If you go to Window, Arrange, and if we select 3 up vertical, what it actually does is it puts all of your your files up in the same place. And now we're going to combine these. Morning, Jordan. So with our layers panel, all right, so this is my first video group. I think I'm going to want to combine them all into this one. All right, so for my layers, I'm going to go to my second one. All right, and I'm just going to drag this into here. Let's see. All right, so if I go back to this one, and let's just double check to make sure that that works. Yep, so look, now I have this video that's in here, and I can click on this, and I can change my audio there. Same thing with this one. All right, so that's going to be kind of the tricky part here, and that's really the hardest part of this whole demo. All right, so once we get these arranged, 3 up vertical, because we have 3 files, right? Because right now, if I go to my first file, right, so let me show you this here, right? So if I click on each file, this one only has 2 layers in it. This one has 1. This one has 1. So right now, if I go back, I'm just missing that third one. So if I just click here, and now take this video group, and if I just drag it into here, all right, now I can see on this one that I have all 3 in there, and then I can edit the audio from those. So at this point, I can close these other 2. All right, and then I could go in there and I could manipulate these. All right, so the words for that, right? So number 7 is we're going to basically show all files in at the same time, right? Because that's what we're doing by doing that window option. All right, so to do that, that was Windows, right? And then Arrange. And, I mean, you can see here you have a lot of different options for that. I think the most you can do is 3 up vertical, but I don't know if that will show. Actually, sorry, you can do tile all vertically. All right, so that's probably the best thing to do. Just tile all vertically, so that no matter how many you have, you're going to show them all at once. All right, and then from that point, you are going to drag I will say the layers from each file into one, right? So we're trying to get all those layers, right, into the one file. All right, and then once we get from there, then we can start doing our editing. All right. So I'm going to keep going to talk about this stuff to really give you full demonstration of all this stuff, but that is really the hardest part. All right. So at least I know that I will have to work with you guys on doing that. It's probably going to be, you know, a little harder to do than to understand it possibly, but you know, as long as you understand what we're doing with that, I think that's half the battle there. Jordan, if you could open up a Google Doc, or if you want to write this on paper, I am going to ask that you guys bring that stuff in. All right, going back up, these are some of the major topics here. So import, we are doing file. All right, so bring the file in, right? The clip in to document. The next thing we'll talk about then is getting to trimming, all right? So to trim would be to, anybody have a guess? Now, well, you're using the word in the definition, so to cut it, right? To take out unnecessary parts, right? I can't spell. I love spell check. All right, so that would be the next thing to do here, right? So now we have these 3 clips on our timeline, and we can, as we say, what's this process called of moving this playhead? It is one way to look at it, but we would say this is scrubbing, right? You're scrubbing through the timeline. All right, so maybe at this point here, Damien turns around and gives us the thumb up. All right, I think I would want to stop it there. All right, there's 2 ways we can trim this. All right, first thing we can do, we can just take the end point and we can drag this over. That's probably the easiest thing, right? The other way So that works if you have a piece at the end that you want to remove. All right. Let's say though that there's something in the middle that you wanted to take out. If that's the case, you're going to move your playhead to that point, and all you do is you press the scissor on this little toolbar thing here, right? So you can see how that now separated that. So now if I wanted to do something with this, I could then, that's going to work independently of the rest, right? That's not necessary for me there, but so to trim, we'll say here, trim clips by either dragging the start end point. So really that's masking also. If we talk about masking, we're not really deleting that because I could go back here if I wanted to get that back and I could just drag that back out and it's still there. So we're not really destroying that clip. We're just hiding that part. All right. But that would be one way to do your trim. So we're either dragging the start and the end point or use the scissor to make a cut in the clip. All right. So, oh, actually, and let's go back to our audio, right? The main point of doing that stuff was to kill or mute the audio for these clips, right? So if I just click this little arrow, all right, which is right here in this clip, now I can go to audio and I can just say mute audio. All right. So now if I play this, we have no sound in here. All right. So then we can add a nice background song and make this, you know, like your cheesy commercial that we're going to create here, right? All right. So, and actually, I think I'm going to just fit that in here. I'm going to insert that in there. So mute audio by clicking the arrow on, what would we say this? Yeah, the top right of the video clip, right? And press mute. All right, so repeat number 9 for additional clips. So we want to mute that audio on all of them, right? So I'm just going to scroll over. All right, so this is our scroll bar here. We're going to go to audio and mute. Same thing here, audio and mute. All right, now let's see if we have any unnecessary. All right, so in here, I don't know why this video resized, but I should just be able to do a Control T. Uh-oh, what's that going to do to us? All right, let's see. I don't know why those changed our size. I think I'm a little nervous if we transform this, it's going to take away those audio qualities. Let's see if we convert. What's it? Wait, oh, check. All right, so I'm positioning it. Now let's see. Will I have audio? I'm thinking I will, probably. Oh, no. All right. So that's good. So it kept that muting of the audio in there. All right, so I was a little nervous there because now if I look at my layers, this thing is back to that other type of object, but I don't really care because we got rid of that audio, and that was the main thing with that, all right? So I could actually, I could scale this a little bit more. All right, I'll do the same thing with this one. So Control T will allow us to scale it. And accept. And I don't know why it doesn't go into position, but there we go, right? So now we have no audio there. So for this one, I think I would want to just Add some extra stuff in there. So I'm scrubbing. I guess that beginning is okay. Maybe I would want to stop it like right there though, right? So I'm going to trim that off there, and we have that. All right, so we'll say trim clips. All right, so yeah, that's all right. Next thing, oh, I don't have this up here. A transition. All right, so anybody know what a transition is? All right, a transition is going to kind of join the clips together in a more or less kind of abrupt way. See if we play this from here, it's just, we would call that like a jump cut in video terms, all right? So instead what we can do is we can click this little button here and select the transition, and I like doing a crossfade, and we can just drag that right into there. All right, so now we have this nice gradual fade into there, right? That looks a lot nicer, right? All right, so that's a crossfade. So all you're doing is you're selecting your type of fade you want. You can actually change this duration also, or you can go in here and you can just drag this. If you don't want that to be as long of a transition, I just do that, and now that fade happens a little quicker. All right, and do the same thing for this one. So if I say crossfade and I just drag this over into here, and again, we can reduce that duration so it's not happening so quickly, and then we see that play here. All right, so we have our transition, which, what are we saying there? I think blends one clip into another to avoid a jump cut, which is just abrupt, right? It's just kind of really rough. All right, so those look nicer. All right, and we'll say that we're going to do that. So apply transition by selecting, what would we call this? It's a box. I'm just trying to visually describe it, right? The half white box or something like that. I don't know. I'm just going to say selecting the one you want and dragging it in between the clips. All right, so that would be creating our transitions, right? So we have all that in there. Then I guess we could talk about color correction with these. All right, you could go into any of these, and this is what's cool about Photoshop for color correction. It gets a little more difficult for Premiere, so that's another reason why I'm starting with this, because it's a lot more user-friendly. But we can apply those adjustment layers just like we did to our images, right? So if I go to maybe hue and saturation, all right, and I want this to be applied to this layer. Now let's see if you guys can figure out what's happening here. All right, or actually, so we have our hue. It's not really doing anything on this, is it? Oh, well, and I have my timeline in the right spot. So look at that. That's pretty crazy looking, right? Now let's see, though, however. I hate when I do that. I just undocked this, and let me see if I can get this back. There we go. So we just applied an adjustment layer, just like we did for if it was a picture, right? So here, I'll go back. All right, so all I did, Damien, is I selected the layer I wanted that color correction to happen on, and I went into here, and then went to hue and saturation. And where's my toolbar? That should have come up. I guess I got to double click. There it is. So, what happened? There it is. All right, so if I go to, I change my hue, and I can saturate it. And I'm just curious to see, yeah, it did it for all that. So this is where it gets tricky, all right? But I think what you can do is you can actually, if you look down here, and now this isn't going to be required, but I believe all these things down here are animation properties. So by turning on this style, all right, we can actually go in here and you can have this hue and saturation kind of going at different times. Because remember, the reason that this is all happening is because this is all part of one layer. So we remembered that when we applied our hue and saturation, that by using this arrow, that it isolated it to one layer or not. So since these are all in one layer, that's why we're getting that. But let's see, if I go in here, let's see if I'm right. And now if I edit this frame here, and if I go back here to 0 to kind of get it back to where it started. So what these little diamonds are, they're called keyframes. So what it's doing is saying at this point, this is going to be this setting, and at this point, now, all right, so I don't know. I thought that style would have been an adjustment layer. I think it's more a layer style, but that's a little bit more advanced. So you could apply, I think for right now, maybe, just work on getting your color correct though, right? So you should have a good range of brightness and contrast, and just have something that's going to apply across your whole video. All right, but that is an option there with color correction, is that you can, apply that and it does it to your whole video. I think for the most part, this stuff is, pretty good. Actually, maybe this, I would maybe do a little color correction with that, but nothing too crazy. All right, so we have our audio, we have our transitions. Oh, what happened to our transitions? This one maybe got lost when I did that other thing there. Or maybe I undid it at some point. All right, so I'm decreasing that fade a little bit there. All right, so it's a nice, easy fade in. All right, so two more things we're going to talk about here. Text and bringing in the sound file. All right, for text, that's pretty basic, right? So I think all we're going to do is select our text tool, and we can just define a box. You can see it did make a new type of layer there, and we would title this, get our font nice and large. Now, why am I not seeing the video at this when I'm editing this text right now? It's after it where? At the end of our timeline, right? Good. So what we'd want to do is I can drag this up to show, as I'd say, a little more real estate there. So we can see this, and then I'm going to drag this up. Oh, actually, let's see. Okay, so what I did too, when I created that text, it was in this video group, so I couldn't drag it above this. So all I did was I took it and I brought it up above that layer. All right, so it's kind of outside of this group. It's not going to be associated with that. And now I can take this and I can drag it down here. And if I scrub back, now I see my text there. So that color probably wouldn't be the best, right? Because we don't really have a decent contrast there. So maybe I would make it something like a white. And I can use my layer styles. All right, I'm going to go in there and do like an outer glow or a stroke maybe to create a little more contrast. I'm a big, I think black looks kind of good there. I like it on the outside, make it a little thicker. All right, and maybe throw it up here or something. All right, and then I could transform this to make it a little larger. All right, now since we are working with video, you can actually animate this in here. I don't know if I'm going to make this required, but I'm going to go over this. If you are interested, maybe I'll make it extra credit. All right. Once we expand this kind of these options on here, all right. Actually, let's see if I think we have to rasterize the text actually, because we want a transform option. All right, because right now this is saying where it's starting. Now if I go in here and move this, let's see if it works. Oh, it does work, all right? So that's all I had to do. Actually not too difficult, right? So if I play this now, look, my text is moving. So all I did, I'll repeat that again or go over that again. What's that? All right, so if I go back in my history, I can, all right. So to animate something, all right, first thing you have to do is, actually I'll go back one more. All right, so we have this layer here. We're going to click the stopwatch in front of any of these properties, all right? Or actually, sorry, let me say that again. First you want to move your playhead to kind of establish the starting point, right? So right now my text is going to start here. Then I'm going to say I want to create this potential of animation. So I'm going to click the stopwatch. So I'm saying, all right, this is our starting point. You see the diamond indicating a keyframe. And then move your playhead to where you want that animation to change, and then make the change. So all I have to do is move my text over here, and it creates this other diamond. All right, and now if we scrub back and play, we see our text is moving. And we have, you know, that animation happening. All right, so I'll go back and we'll say extra credit, or actually, well, we'll start with text, all right? Use T tool to add title, all right, which is thought bubbles. No, just the title. I'm thinking this also. I think I'll have you guys put in our DVC logo at the end, just to kind of brand this and give us an identity. I was thinking about maybe having your names in there, which is usually something there also. But actually, yeah, you know what? I am going to do that. So thought bubbles, and we're going to say by your name. All right. We'll see who can come up with the best. Right there. All right. And then we will say extra credit here. Animate the title. All right, so to do that, right, we expand the arrow. Or actually, first we have to, right, move the text layer out of the video group. All right. Then actually, I'm sorry. This should be not the extra credit part, right? So we created the title, and then we moved it out of the video group and move it to the beginning of the timeline, right? Because we want that title to be seen at the beginning. All right. Then, so that would be the basic part. So to animate it, we're going to expand the arrow next to transform. Move the playhead to the beginning of the clip, which is your text clip, rather, right? Then you're going to press the stopwatch to create this animation potential. Then move the playhead to where you want the animation to end. I should be using Google Voice to Text. I just forgot about that. All right. And then move the text. All right. So all this stuff, again, will be in the video, and I am going to, if you encounter problems and you're forgetting stuff, I can certainly help you. But hopefully you kind of get this by concept. All right, so now we have this nice video, which we have an animated title, we have transitions. The next thing we'll do is we'll add our audio. So just simply we'll click down here on this audio track and then select add audio. I have the U2 song, It's a Beautiful Day, if you've ever heard that. Actually, one of my wedding songs. It has a special place for me. All right, so if you never heard this song, where's my audio? Did I mute it? There we go. All right, so I had that muted from before. All right, so, and I'll let you guys pick whatever song you want, really. I'm not going to make you use this one. All right, so we added our audio. The last thing we're going to do here is we're going to add the DVC logo at the end, and then we're going to render it out. So I'm going to move my playhead here. I'm going to place an embedded image. So for that, we're going to go to shared, multimedia, share, actually do I have it? Yeah, I do have it in here. DVC logo. That's very small. Let's see how this looks scaled out. So we'll just put this in here at the end. All right, I feel like, I don't know how this looks on a screen with the transparent background, but we will see. And then we just want to adjust our audio to fit to that. All right, so I just zoomed out. I scroll over here a little bit, and now I can drag this to this point. Maybe I move this. Yeah, so that way our audio will stop when we have our kind of final thing here. All right, so I'm going to say in here, how do we get this to go back? There we go. There we go. All right, so now we're going to add audio track by clicking, what was that saying down here? The music note, right? That's basically what that is. And selecting your audio file. All right, and then as we said, then we'll place DVC logo at the end of timeline. And then finally, our last thing then, all right, is we're going to convert this out. Actually, we should probably save this. All right, so I'm going to call this, because at this point, right, we had these other files that were created. So that original file we had there is not there anymore. All right, so I'm going to call this Thought Bubble Final. All right, that's going to retain our Photoshop layers if we ever want to come back and do this. All right, so we'll say here, save final PSB file, all right, so that we can always go back and edit that. And then to turn this into a video file, we're going to select File, Export, and then Render Video. All right, so I'm going to put this in that same folder where I have my other files. And in our settings here, so we select the folder, we're going to use this format, H.264. We can see that we have high quality, that's good. Our document size is the same as our frame size. We have frame rate, all frames, And I believe that should be all we need there. So if I press render, it's probably going to take a little time. But I'll add that here. So we're going to say convert to video. So to do that, we're going to say File, Export, Render Video. Actually, it's moving right along. And our settings, I think it just says preset equals H.264. This creates an MP4 file, which is a compressed file. It's going to be small in file size, but high quality, retaining all that resolution. And I think that's all there is there. So going back up to our vocab. So when we said export, all right, we're rendering. And what that rendering does is it makes it your presentation file, right? Kind of like when we make our JPEG from our Photoshop files. All right, we're going to be doing the same thing here. We're going to take this video file and combining it, or making all that into one file. So you got to remember that this MP4 file will not be editable. All right, but we can upload it to YouTube, or you could potentially email it. All right, I think mine is done here. Wow, that did process pretty quickly, which actually it's only 30 seconds, but there's a lot going on in here. All right, so as I leave this up, let me go and find my file, and we'll look at the final result here. So if I go into my folder here, I see that I have Thought Bubble Final. It's a video clip. I also have my Photoshop file, and if I play this, might be a little long. Maybe I would trim that a little bit more. You can see that scaling that video, you lose a little bit of resolution. You know, it gets a little blurry. Same thing with that, right? All right, so that transparent background is kind of nice because then we just have that black background, right? We could also, you know, maybe if I tweak that out a little bit, you could fade out this music even if you wanted to. So if I go into here and I say fade out, it's, you know, this is just kind of some extra stuff there. Let's see how that works. Instead of it just ending abruptly, see how it kind of fades out? It's a little more gradual. You can do the same thing with your pictures too, and that's where all this stuff happens with our animation. So we could also fade out our opacity. So right now it's at 100%. If I go to the end and then I lower my opacity to, let's see, I would have to go to my layer here and then decrease my opacity to 0. Look at what that does here. So now that makes my picture fade out. All right, actually, and I'll make that as extra credit too. If you want to fade out your audio and your video. So I'll say copy. Where was our audio up here? There we go. So to do that, all we were saying, right, is that we just click the arrow on audio layer and set a fade out. Probably like a second or two is probably all you need. All right, and so that would be the extra credit for the audio. And then we're saying to place the DVC logo. All right, the extra credit for that. Fade out the image. Click the arrow on the image layer. And that's a little bit more involved, but not too much, right? So for that, actually, am I saying that the right way? So you're going to adjust your opacity from 100 to 0, all right? All right, so that is our